when he was doing his championship pie and all of that and ranking LeBron, his pyramid and all of that. Like, these are the people that were holding up the Lakers all these years, right? And now you know the only reason that they were doing that is because their favorite guy, LeBron, was on the team. But now that he's no longer on the team,
for nearly a decade, Nick Wright kept making the case that the Lakers had what it took to chase another championship. Then LeBron James left, and almost overnight, his outlook on that very same team completely changed. According to Wright, the Lakers suddenly looked like a much weaker contender, and he didn't exactly hide his disappointment while making that argument. So today, we're gonna go through everything he said, separate the points that hold up from the ones that don't, and see whether his criticism really makes sense. But first, I want to hear from you. Did the Lakers actually take a step backward after LeBron's departure, or did they quietly come away as one of the biggest winners of free agency? Let me know your answer in the comments before we dive in.
these are the people that were holding up the Lakers all these years, right? And now you know the only reason that they were doing that is because their favorite guy, LeBron, was on the team. But now that he's no longer on the team, and the Lakers have made some considerable movement in the free agency, market, gotten some really good pieces. Now Nick Wright is trying to convince himself and LeBron fans that the Lakers got worse.
The conversation really starts with what Nick Wright had to say, because his take on the Lakers definitely caught people's attention. On his show, he didn't hesitate to say the team took a step backward after LeBron left, describing the roster as far from a serious contender. He pointed to several reasons for that opinion, including the loss of Marcus Smart, who he called a huge piece, the departure of Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura still not being re-signed, and most importantly, the team's second-best player no longer being there. Now here's where a lot of people see the irony. For the better part of 8 years, Nick Wright consistently found reasons to put the Lakers in the championship conversation, building the case that they had a real shot almost every season. Even as recently as last year, he still viewed them as a legitimate title threat. But once LeBron was out of the picture, the outlook changed almost instantly, and suddenly the franchise was being described as a much weaker team. That's why this reaction stands out to so many people, because it makes it seem like every evaluation eventually comes back to one factor: LeBron.
Yeah, after splitting up with LeBron, the Lakers have made some moves. They got Walker Kessler, they signed Mamu, Colin Sexton, and my guy Quentin Grimes. How strong of a team is this compared to the West? Do you think they're going to work next year?
Well, it's not a very strong team at all. They got worse. And Marcus Smart was wildly important to him. He's gone. Kennard was a great pickup. He's gone. Rui is not re-signed yet, and the second best player on the team.
The reason the "they got worse" argument carries so much weight is because it includes LeBron among the players the Lakers lost. If you remove his name from that conversation, the case doesn't feel nearly as convincing because the discussion stops being centered on the roster itself. At that point, it becomes clear that a lot of the focus is really on the player who wore number 23. When LeBron was on the team, the outlook always seemed optimistic, but once he left, the tone shifted dramatically. That said, it's only fair to acknowledge that Nick Wright wasn't wrong about everything. Losing Marcus Smart is a legitimate blow, considering he's a former Defensive Player of the Year and the kind of veteran who impacts a team beyond the stat sheet before heading to Houston. Luke Kennard is also a significant departure, with a career three-point percentage above 40%, and now he's on his way to Phoenix. Rui Hachimura also remains unsigned, so it's reasonable to say the Lakers have taken a hit in terms of depth, and that part of the argument is grounded in reality.
I didn't watch. Don't cut this out into a social clip. However, fair is fair. When Stephen A has said things that I've disagreed with, I've gone after him. So I want to just, and I didn't see everything Stephen A said about the fact that the Lakers are going to be the first team in 40 years to have their best three players be white dudes. But I'm telling you right now, while everyone's annihilating them for it, that occurred to all of you as well. Everyone's like, how could he say this? It's like, everybody had a similar reaction when we saw the picture of the Lakers' big three, and it's Luka, Austin, and Walker Kessler.
Yes, the Lakers bench took a hit. Losing Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard in the same offseason is significant, and nobody is denying that. If Nick Wright had simply said the Lakers lost valuable role players and now have questions about their depth, that would have been a fair take. But he didn't stop there. He said the Lakers are a worse team overall, and that's where plenty of people disagree. Because while the Lakers lost pieces, they also filled a major need. They added Walker Kessler, a legitimate starting center and the exact type of player Luka Doncic reportedly wanted. In 201 career games, Kessler has averaged 9.5 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks while shooting an outstanding 68% from the field. He's an efficient rim runner who finishes lobs, sets screens, and protects the paint. So after finally solving a long-standing issue at center, saying the Lakers simply got worse is a much tougher argument to make.
I even did, when I saw the Walker Kessler deal, my own thing in my head where I was like, gosh, what is the last time a team's three best guys were white dudes? And I was like, even the Celtics in the 80s with Bird and McHale, they always had Parrish. Like three of their four best at times, whether it was Ainge or Bill Walton, but it's been a while.
When you look at the Walker Kessler move, the background really matters. He entered the league as the 22nd pick in the 2022 draft, spent his first 4 seasons with Utah, and he's still just 24 years old. This isn't a veteran nearing the end of his career, it's a young rim protector who was only beginning to hit his prime. The reason the Lakers had to pay so much comes down to one thing. Kessler was a restricted free agent, which gave Utah almost all the negotiating power. The Jazz even put a 5-year, $140 million offer on the table, roughly $28 million per season, so the Lakers had to beat that with a shorter contract worth about $32 million annually, while also including multiple draft picks to get the deal done. Utah chose to move forward with its number 2 overall pick and cash in on the Lakers' draft assets instead. So yes, Los Angeles paid a premium, but they paid it for a young center at the position they needed most. And here's the part that makes the "they got worse" argument tough to buy. The Lakers still reached the second round of last season's playoffs even though Luka Doncic missed the entire postseason because of a hamstring injury. They got that far without their best player appearing in a single playoff game. So the idea that a healthy Luka paired with a legitimate starting center somehow makes this team worse just doesn't make much sense. I'll also give Nick credit on one point because it's only fair. The price tag for Kessler was undeniably high. The Lakers signed him to a 4-year, $130 million contract, about $32 million per season. They also gave up 2 unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033, along with pick swaps in 2028 and 2030. That's a significant package. Plenty of fans on Twitter immediately argued the Lakers paid way too much. That reaction is understandable. There was even a discussion about whether the Lakers should have pursued Jaylen Brown instead, since they were already committing 2 first-round picks and 2 swaps. It's an interesting idea, but realistically it never worked because the Lakers didn't have the salary flexibility to match a contract of that size. Still, the fact that people were throwing around superstar alternatives shows just how expensive this trade looked. That's a reasonable criticism, and so is the salary situation. Luka and Austin Reeves are expected to earn more than $90 million combined next season. Add Kessler's roughly $30 million salary, and those 3 players alone take up nearly all of the team's cap space. That doesn't leave much room to strengthen the rest of the roster. If there's a legitimate concern about the Lakers, it's the price they paid and how limited their financial flexibility becomes, not the claim that the roster somehow got worse. Now, Nick also dismissed Colin Sexton as someone who doesn't really add value, and that's where I disagree. The Lakers had one of the league's weakest scoring benches last season, with their second unit struggling to generate offense on a consistent basis. Sexton has already shown he can come off the bench and put up 15 to 20 points in a hurry. For a team that desperately needed scoring whenever the starters sat down, that's a meaningful addition. Calling him worthless feels more like a conclusion reached before evaluating what he actually brings. As for Austin Reeves, Nick isn't alone in questioning that contract. Even Draymond Green admitted he was surprised the Lakers gave Reeves a max deal, joking that every off-night will now bring heavy criticism. And yes, $185 million is a massive commitment for an undrafted player, but Reeves also fits the profile of the kind of second option Luka needs alongside him.
The reason Austin Reeves makes sense next to Luka is pretty straightforward. He can take over the offense when Luka heads to the bench, and when they're on the floor together, he's exactly the kind of player who can make defenses pay by knocking down open shots. Maybe even more importantly, Luka reportedly wanted the Lakers to keep him. When your franchise player tells the front office he wants his running mate to stay, that's usually the decision you make. Now, there is one criticism that absolutely deserves attention. Walker Kessler's availability has been an issue. He's failed to reach 65 games in 3 of his 4 NBA seasons, so it's fair to question whether he can stay healthy enough to anchor the defense over a full schedule. If injuries keep him out for long stretches, the Lakers' entire plan becomes much harder to pull off. That's a legitimate concern, and there's really no reason to argue against it. But here's what stood out about Nick's comments. While making the case that the Lakers got worse, he also admitted there are really only 2 teams in the Western Conference that truly look intimidating right now: Oklahoma City and San Antonio. He even suggested the Lakers could end up ahead of teams like Denver, Houston, and Minnesota. So that raises an obvious question. If Los Angeles can realistically finish above several contenders, how does that line up with saying they became a worse team? Those two arguments don't really fit together. That's where these discussions sometimes lose consistency. The conclusion seems to come first, that the Lakers must decline after LeBron's departure, and everything else gets shaped around that idea, even when the points being made suggest something different. There's another example of that during the same conversation. Nick actually praised the Lakers for adding Quentin Grimes and even predicted he'd have a career season in Los Angeles. That isn't a wild take either. Grimes is a reliable 3-and-D wing who can score, defend multiple positions, and fit naturally alongside a ball-dominant creator. There was even a funny exchange when his co-host mistakenly thought Grimes had already logged a full stretch playing with Luka, and Nick had to point out they only shared the floor for a handful of games, because that season included Luka's trade and an early injury. So even in the middle of arguing that the Lakers took a step backward, Nick acknowledged one of their off-season additions looks like a clear success. Keep an eye on how this conversation changes once the season starts, because this is where expectations tend to move. If the Lakers get off to a strong start, the reaction becomes, let's see if they can sustain it. If they're still rolling in January, people shift to, we'll judge them in the playoffs. And if they eventually lose a postseason series, the response becomes, see, they were never as good. The standard keeps changing because many people made up their minds before the season even tipped off. That feels less like objective analysis and more like sticking to a narrative. There's also a bigger point Nick mentioned that deserves another look: the changing landscape of the NBA. He's right that the league is entering a new era, but that transition could actually work in the Lakers' favor. If the Western Conference only has 2 teams viewed as true heavyweights, then everything behind them is up for grabs. A healthy Luka paired with a legitimate starting center gives the Lakers a real opportunity to move into that group. An open conference is good news for a team built around one of the league's elite players, not a reason to write them off. In a way, Nick's own argument ended up strengthening the Lakers' case without intending to, and he's far from the only one expressing doubts. Avery Johnson also described the LeBron-less Lakers as nothing more than a play-in team, saying they don't really intimidate anyone.
So this isn't just one opinion. There's a growing group that decided the Lakers weren't contenders the moment LeBron was no longer part of the roster. A lot of these arguments seem to rest on the same assumption, that once a 40-year-old LeBron left, the Lakers suddenly had nothing left to build around. There's another interesting wrinkle here too. Nick Wright himself described LeBron's exit as the result of a perfect storm, pointing to reports about tension with owner Jeannie Buss and the feeling that LeBron wasn't fully appreciated. So he clearly understood why LeBron wanted a fresh start, but then he turned around and framed the Lakers as the team that got left in ruins, when the reality is they moved forward and reshaped the roster. It's hard to spend one segment explaining why the split made sense and then spend the next suggesting the franchise was completely devastated by it. The continuity on this roster also gets overlooked. Even without LeBron, the Lakers are still keeping familiar pieces around Luka, like Jared Vanderbilt and Dalton Knecht, while Bronny James is expected to remain with the team and continue developing under coach JJ Redick. This isn't a roster being rebuilt from the ground up. It's largely the same core that reached the second round, only now it replaces a 40-year-old star with a true center, and adds more shooting around the lineup. That looks much more like an adjustment than a complete rebuild. So let's answer the bigger question directly. Did the Lakers actually get worse? When it comes to depth, maybe a little. Losing Marcus Smart and Luke Kennard takes away quality bench pieces, and that's a fair concern. But looking at the roster as a whole, it's difficult to argue they've taken a major step backward. They got younger, finally addressed the center position that had been a weakness for years, kept Austin Reeves, and even had their franchise player publicly express excitement about the moves. That's the kind of offseason most teams would be happy with. To wrap everything up, Nick Wright did raise a few legitimate concerns. The price paid for Walker Kessler was significant, the salary cap is undeniably tight, and Kessler's durability is a real question that could become a problem if injuries continue. Those are all reasonable points. Where the argument becomes harder to accept is the broader conclusion that the Lakers simply got worse. Based on the moves they made, another way to look at it is that they became younger, strengthened their interior defense, and moved into a new era with a roster built around Luka. Whether that translates into wins will be decided on the court, but the offseason itself doesn't automatically point to a weaker team. If they end up earning a top 4 seed, this entire conversation could look very different a few months from now. So what do you think? Did the Lakers improve this offseason, or do you believe they actually took a step backward? Share your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the discussion, and don't forget to subscribe for more NBA coverage.